Hey, aloha, everybody. Welcome to the Questionable Authority. Hi, Kapua. Come say hi to the peoples. You want to say hi to the peoples? You want to say, can you say welcome to the Questionable Authority, dog? No? Because you're a dog? Because you're a dog, you can't say those words? Okay. Well, yes, you can go. You're a good girl. How's everybody doing today? My name's Mike. I'm a lawyer, not your lawyer. I am the person who forgets to turn on lights. Also, wow, I'm tired. But that's nothing new, right? So, how's everybody been doing? Let's see. I had a favorite bagel place closing. That's never good. That's absolutely never good. Jury duty, thank you, and that is completely unironic for showing up and doing your duty. Standard jury duty thing. I don't know whether it's criminal. I don't know whether it's civil. A lot of the time, people will show up, particularly on the civil side, for jury duty and be very angry because they wind up not being needed because the case settled on the courthouse steps. Or sometimes the case settled during trial. Even if that happens, it's still incredibly valuable. So, thank you. I'm a big settlement fan, and sometimes just having the jury there and staring at the jury can be enough to finally get everybody to sit down and resolve their differences like adults. So, you know. Oh, there we go. Yep, the inexorable march of time is indeed a thing. So let's see. I'm vaguely tired because I had I slept very, wired. I was very wired when I slept last night. Yes. But I did manage to sleep some despite being very wired. And in this case, it wasn't very wired because I had my favorite things. But I was literally wired. Also, I have now learned that CPAP machines are a freaking game changer. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. Game changer. I hope they process everything soon. So, yeah. Let's see. When was the last time I streamed? But yeah, no, I had my first ever sleep study last night. And they converted it into the split study about 2 hours in. Something like that. So the rest of that night, I never did get a full night of sleep, but it was 3:30 in the morning when I woke up. I'd gotten to, I had to go to the appointment for the thing was dumb early anyway. I'm a little goofy because I'm a little tired. What else is new? Pangolin. I absolutely feel you. It's one of the things that I'm not going to be talking about so much for various reasons. Those reasons do not involve lack of caring on this. But yeah, absolutely was like the best night of sleep that I got, only I'm still a little jet lagged, etc. So when was the last time I streamed? I'm trying to remember. Right before Thanksgiving, right? So it's been a little bit. Been a little bit. 2 weeks ago, yeah. So, things have been very busy there, and just to give you a heads up on stuff, over the course of the next month, we may have some last-minute disturbances, etc. We're in the process of doing things that involve changing housing, which is good on the whole. But I am learning involves lots of talking to people and paperwork and things. Um, just across the board. So that's where things are at on that. Off base. Well, we got to move off base. My wife's retiring. And we want to stay out here. So, that involves locating someplace permanent, which we got really lucky to do. We were able to find a place. We were able to find a local place way sooner than when we had even anticipated. Honestly, we had anticipated not even starting to do serious looking for another month or two. So, finding a place very early, we're very excited about. Alex Jones bankruptcy judge things. Yeah, I'm going to have two comments on that one, actually. One, I'm not going to have a lot of comment on that one. That's not because I'm worried about the political implications. That's because bankruptcy law is one of many subject areas in the law where you could take the sum total of my knowledge, inscribe it in 12-inch high letters on the head of a pin. I don't know squat about bankruptcy law. That's comment one. Comment two, while I've seen the bankruptcy judge referred to as a Trump appointee, that is not correct. Bankruptcy judges are Article 1 judges. They're appointed under congressional authority, not presidential. They're not Article 3 lifetime appointments. They're 14-year terms, and they're appointed by the circuit court, I believe, generally based on local advice coming from the district. Bankruptcy is its whole own geeky area that is not nearly as susceptible to shenanigans as other areas. So that's my second comment there. And that's all I got to say on that because we've now exhausted the total of my knowledge. Other questions before we get rolling on WordPress? Okay, what do we want to do first? Do we want to do, because we all know what happened, right? The preliminary injunction got granted. Do we want to look at the preliminary injunction motion, which I'm actually going to hope that Callie is his, yes, Callie is, in fact, his usual wonderful, efficient self, because I just realized I didn't have that open in a tab anywhere. That's been rectified. All right. If we're going to start, well, we can start up with the preliminary injunction itself, or we can start on what's happened since, and then we can back up. This is the order, Robert. This is the order. Motion was granted day before yesterday. Chronologically? Order first? Okay, we'll do order first and subsequent shenanigans second. Why not? CAND.64. Yes. And that's the right document. Who should we be paying attention to who's following the case honestly learned? I ain't. Thank you, because learned, in the last 5 weeks I've been to the mainland 3 separate times, and most recently just got back on Sunday. Between all of the work that I'm missing and the makeup time for that, All right. So, as a refresher, the motion for preliminary injunction was filed not terribly long after words. Oh, if Colin is following, Colin Y'all is, yeah, I don't think he's a bankruptcy lawyer, but my recollection is that he actually teaches undergraduate type business law courses in addition to everything else, in addition to other things. And given that certainly has much more of a foundation than I do and probably has a fair foundation. All right, so here we go. Order. Motion for preliminary injunction. The court grants the motion with modifications. I'm gonna be cutting to the chase. You can find Colin where the skies are blue. Look straight ahead. Look straight ahead. Anybody else really kind of like the Hothouse Flowers version of that song? Anyway, the motion was granted. This is not a surprise after the preliminary injunction hearing. It was clear after the preliminary injunction hearing that it was going to be granted. Thanks for the tip, Zach. We knew it was clear because the judge was like, yeah, I'm going to grant some form of relief. In this case, spoiler alert, the relief granted is very close to everything that WPE asked for. Not everything, but damn close. All right. Second thing I should mention, I read the preliminary injunction when I was doing my commenting on it on Blue Sky yesterday and the day before. I read it lawyer style, and by lawyer style, I mean uninvolved lawyer style, meaning most of this I haven't even looked at yet. I jumped to the... I basically... Here's how lawyers tend to read an order from a court. All right? In fact, would you guys like a simulation of a lawyer getting the document from the court and reading the document from the court? Like, just a very rough, quick, 10x speed simulation. Okay, so, all right, it's here. Okay, check. The court grants the motion with modifications. Awesomeness. No, I don't want a generative summary. Scope. Following relief. Okay, restrained and enjoined from. Blocking, disabling, or interfering with access to WordPress.org. Interfering with control over access to plugins or extensions and respective directory listings. Develop, publish, maintained, including those published, developed, maintained as of September 20th. So they got the key date they were asking for. Interfering with installations by using auto-migrate or auto-update commands to modify any plugin without the express request of or by consent of. That's a good term. That's narrow enough to stand up and broad enough to capture the bulk of shenanigans. The above does not preclude WordPress's ability to ensure security or operability consistent with procedures and policies. If there's anywhere that idiots are going to... if there's anywhere where the FA is going to happen, it's going to happen with that. Defendants are ordered to remove the purported list of WordPress WP customers, restore related entities, restore entities, restore functionality data resource, remove checkbox, and give back ACF. So yeah, that's pretty much everything. So yeah, this is where litigation might have to happen over what that means. Any litigation that has to happen over what that means is almost certainly going to be the FA and the judge will provide the FO. In other words, sane lawyers would tell clients, just look, just don't get close. Okay? That's kind of the advice that a lawyer would give. And yeah, so jumping back after this, what I did was went back and mostly read that section and mostly read that section. And that's how you lawyer read the thing. So the first, 20 pages or so, didn't bother with. That's genuinely how, I'm going to read. If I'm getting an order that's in somebody else's case, that may be all the read I ever do. Unless it's going to be, unless that read shows me that it's likely to be very relevant to my own stuff. And if I get an order in my case, I'm going to read in that kind of order and then go back and carefully read everything else. This one's kind of in between. This has sort of turned into something that feels like my case because you all have gotten me so involved in it. But I did not have time, what with having a brief doing the Third Circuit on Monday, to really do a deep dive before now. And let's get... Yeah, not sorry for getting me involved. Yeah, I hear that. All right, so factual background. What is WordPress? Initially, the site did X. The site got big. And she's citing from both declarations here. Everybody's declarations. So she's clearly read everything. And she's clearly evaluating she's clearly evaluating which ones are more credible for which points and everything. And Navigator, hang around when I do other stuff. Live Lawyer React stream happens a lot. Because I'm a bad streamer. I'm too lazy to read stuff ahead of time most of the time. WordPress describes its commitment to open source and 4 core freedoms. WordPress website says that. Definition of the... so footnote 2 is interesting, so let's see what footnote 1 is. So WordPress users have the option of downloading from the administrative panel. They define it. Okay. For the first time in this case, you're actually going to hear me criticize this judge and or her chambers. Footnote calls go after punctuation unless there is no way to avoid putting them mid-sentence. I'm sorry, they go post-punctuation. That's where they go. That's where they belong. They don't belong after the words. They belong after the punctuation mark at the end of the sentence. That's where they go. Unless, sometimes you got to break that rule, but unless you got to break that rule, that's where they go. Lawyers get ramped up. All right, for the non-lawyers. Where am I keeping one of my favorite books these days? Dang it. Everything's a mess here because I've been trying to sort things and I keep running out of time to sort stuff. Aha! I'm going to show you the book, yes. I don't have my copy of the Blue Book. I just have an online copy of the Blue Book. The Blue Book is, of course, But would you like to see, just how... All right. Superb book. Superb book, and it's not even the style guide. Eat, Shoots, and Leaves is here. Let's see. Eat, Shoots, and Leaves is here. Chicago Manual of Style is there. Zinser's on Writing Well is there. Draft number 4 by John McPhee is there. Of course, my copy of Strunk and White is there. You know. Typography is a serious deal. Formatting is a serious deal. The craft of writing is a serious deal for lawyers. Also, yeah, one space after, we're going to have to, Forever Home is not a lot more than half the size of Current Home, because we don't need much more than half the size of Current Home, but it does mean that a lot of the books are getting downsized and donated. Which is long overdue, frankly. But anyway, yeah, one space after a period, but one area where, okay, so would you like, one of the hills that I die on all the time at work? I mean, all the time I die on this hill. Here's the hill that I die on. Ragged right is bad, okay? Full justification. Unfortunately, I die on that hill all the dang time because Akiva and Catherine are both big ragged right people. Anyway, alright, so... Full justification. And, you know, there's a link somewhere or another on the Discord to my PhD thesis. You'll see if you look at my PhD thesis. I care on that stuff. Full justification, but also do not do double space. Do line spacing equals exactly twice the number of points as the font. Anyway. Alright. So let's see. So anyway, going through what WordPress is, how WordPress works, what WP Engine is, how WP Engine works. And then skimming through, because WP Engine's products and services are built to work with websites designed using open source and open source WooCommerce plugins, WP Engine naturally references WordPress and WooCommerce when referring to the software. Has consistently used the word WordPress since 2010. That's an important fact to get into for the judge to put in. The fact that the judge is putting that date in now suggests that the judge doesn't feel all that impressed with Matt's trademark claims. Probably because Matt's trademark claims are not impressive, or to the extent they're impressive, they're not impressive in a good way. And as reflected in a post, hey, Matt, here's your mouth from 7 years ago, getting you in trouble. Automatic and Mullenweg. The licensing agreement. So, I mean, this is just a good basic facts section. Now we get to What really interests me here is just what went in, what went out. Footnote 4 is in brackets where? Oh, yeah, so it is. Yeah. And it's on a word. Double sinful. Doubly sinful. So let's see. Yeah, the judge ain't impressed with Matt. The reason things happen like that is because there are multiple law clerks and the judge all working in chambers together. Sometimes finding little things like that is the fun way to see how many people worked on it, which in turn can be a sign of interest if it's the court, or labor expenditure if it's opposing counsel. All right. According to Brunner, in 2024 September, began threatening her and one of the board members. Warned if we did not agree to pay a very large sum of money before the September 20th keynote address, he was going to embark on a scorched earth nuclear approach within the community and beyond. Told a board member that Automatic would go to war. Said he would send over an agreement he expected WP Engine to sign, or else the war would commence. Hours before the speech, Davies sent a one-page document which was styled as a trademark license agreement. Styled as is a nice turn of phrase there. The reason styled as is a nice turn of phrase is because it's the kind of phrase you use when you're looking at the thing and you're going, I don't know if this is a trademark license or just something that's vaguely trademark license shaped. So, yeah, those are words that I would be feeling good about. So it's not saying it's not a trademark license agreement, Neon Gray, but it's also not saying it's not a trademark license agreement, and I think I just triple negative that. Mullenweg also sent harassing texts outlining his nuclear option and made phone calls. Among other conditions, the trademark license agreement contained the following fee provision: 8% gross, or commit 8% of its revenue in the form of salaries of WP Engine employees working on core features and functionality to be directed by WordPress.org, which we now know is... Actually, I don't think we know what .org is anymore, do we? Does anybody really have any clue what the hell .org is? I sure don't. WP Engine did not agree. The events described below happened. The keynote speech. Offered to support. Encourage every WP Engine customer to not renew their contract. Offered to support employees in finding new jobs, suggesting they could be fired for speaking up, etc. The campaign, is it good when the judge says your actions against the other party are a campaign? WP Engine's access to WordPress, which got cut. On September 25th, 2024, I'll allow the footnote because it's after a comma, but end of the sentence is still far superior. Oh, okay. Then never mind. Yeah, if that's what the brackets are for, then we definitely then actually that's totally correct. That is the way to do it. All right. As a result, customers and users would no longer be able to install new plugins and themes from there and wouldn't be able to update. September 27th announced temporarily restoring the access, which it would block again on October 1st. Okay, footnote 6 is big, so let's see what it says. WP Engine is free to offer their hacked up, bastardized as context for his statement, Mullenweg explains his declaration that he was expressing his opinions about the decision to disable revisions by default. Revisions are a core function. That's an interesting footnote because it encapsulates the entire defamation claim dispute. Which is an interesting statement there. Interesting way to do that. Not sure whether that bodes well for WP or not, honestly. But it does very tightly encapsulate that. September 30th posted the following, that they had deployed a solution, and regular workflow practices have been restored. Notice they didn't say that regular workflow had been restored. ACF plugin, which, well, I mean, look, they stole. Sending notifications is routine, but automatic can never copyright Mullenweg or WP Engine CEO. On October 5th, Automatic made public disclosures, and October 4th. Yeah, so he gave him, what, less than 24 hours? Slightly more than 24 hours? So, yeah. The same day, Mullenweg posted the below message on X. What are the best alternatives? Is there an easy way to migrate? I suspect there are going to be millions. They released a security update within 2 days after that. But they could not submit the patch directly. They had to send it to an Automatic employee for upload. Got no further communications. So this is a fairly balanced overview of what happened, honestly. Except that the inclusion of the figures says a lot about which one she's finding more, where the credibility is. Sign-in pledge. The headings I would read as slightly significant. Because the headings show you what the headings here are kind of showing you is how the author of the headings is thinking about these things. A lot of the stuff that's in the material is cribbed, but the headings are the courts and tend to reflect the thought processes a little bit. I mean, it's tea leaf reading, but it's there. Advertising. Other public comments, including that deal's not on the table anymore. I think they're worth a fraction of that. Who are these developers taking time to migrate away? It doesn't work like that. And then his Slack response, I guess you'll have to wait to see why people might not trusted as much going forward. Oh, and that was on October 5th, so yeah. On October 7th, posted that on the Slack. On October 12th, posted an article to WordPress.org. And forking the thing into a new fee plugin. Updated to remove commercial upsells and fix a security problem. Just so much interfering here. Hacker News. One of the great things about this screenshot, by the way, is that it shows what uninvolved people who are in the fields are saying and thinking about it. That's a really good choice on the part of WPE's legal team to include that kind of thing. At the same time, all it really does is provide the full context. Personal attacks, including an interview in which Mullenweg gave her personal cell phone number to the host of the interview. Tried to poach her from the 28th and threatened to tell the press and the investors that she'd interviewed with Automatic if he didn't accept it. All of this is bonkers. Okay, so procedural notification. Footnote 9, I would take very seriously if I was both parties. Although this footnote 9 thing on this one, calling out the footnoting practices in a footnote is interesting, but also the incorporate by reference arguments made in its motion to dismiss is sort of a thwap. Because remember, it was Automatic's people who made a big deal out of the footnote thing. All right, so the hearing was held there. Meet and confer. Competing proposed orders were filed on December 2nd. All right, the legal standard. We've done a lot, including when I did the discussion of the filings and the discussion of the hearing. But just to recap, a preliminary injunction is a big deal. You only get it if you show a likelihood of success on the merits, irreparable harm, balance of equities, public interest. Of those two, realistically, the balance of the equities and the public interest almost always fall into line if the first two factors forward you. Footnote 10 is kind of standard, actually. I was just looking at a similar footnote. Let me put it this way, I was just looking at a similar footnote, and that was in a case where we were the ones who got denied the leave to file the surreply, but almost everything else. I mean, this is actually a very stock, very standard footnote. And is mostly just the judge telling both sides, slow your roll. All right. Success on the merits. With respect to the first element of the winter test, the court focuses on WP Engine's claim for tortuous interference with contractual relations as a showing that they're likely to succeed on the merits of this claim is sufficient to meet the first prong. Who called it? Was that me? Did I call that? That might have been me. I called that. I mean, not a hard call. Not a hard call. But, to prevail for contractual relations, and the court only does that because they didn't do prospective. The prospective didn't get breached. Didn't get briefed fairly well, all that thoroughly. WP Engine has to show existence of the valid contract, defendant's knowledge, intentional acts and designed to induce breach or disruption, and actual breach or disruption, along with damage. In its briefs, WP Engine refers to interference claims, yada, yada, yada. Has satisfied, it's likely to satisfy each of these elements. That's interesting language here, and the reason that that's interesting is because the court did go ahead and quote the alternative standard where you only need to show serious questions on the merits if the balance of hardships and public interest all kind of tip sharply in your favor. But the court's finding likely rather than serious questions going to the merit there. So, you know, nice. While defendants press WP Engine to identify specific contracts, there is no credible argument that contracts do not exist between WP Engine and its customers. You think? You can get in trouble by not pleading the contract, by not pleading the existence of the contracts. As many of the regulars know, we've seen cases where people have gotten in big trouble by failing to plead the existence of specific contracts. But there are some times where it is so blindingly obvious that at the preliminary injunction stage, you can get away with a little bit of slack. You can get a little bit of slack there. And in particular, at a minimum, by seeking to entice WP Engine's customers to move away, defendants at least acknowledge that there are existing contracts. And that was defendants being way too cute in the opposition. Remember that? Also, what defendants are trying to argue there is that there was no breach because they're paying the early out fees. But the early out fees are liquidated damages, really. Or they're very likely to really be liquidated damages. Second, WP Engine will be able to establish defendants were aware of these contractual relations. That's not even likely to show. That's will be able to. Yeah, you think? Third, defendant's conduct is designed to induce breach or disruption. That is liquidated damages. Whoop, hang on, guys. I'm just going to pause this for a second. This is my sleep study, folks. So hang on for a minute. Hey, this is Mike. understood. Thank you. Bye. Gotta love healthcare and billing questions. Sorry about that. All right. We back. So this is strong wording. Defendant's conduct is designed to induce breach or disruption. That's another, it's likely to. Well, yeah, I mean, is it interfering with business relations? Yes, it's designed to induce breach or disruption. Oh, sorry, different. So that was a reply after that. All right. The facts supporting the fourth element and fifth element are set forth and discussed in detail. The court finds that WPE is likely to succeed on the merits of the intentional interference with contractual relations claim. I think I did say that claim was some of the most incredibly interested. Yeah, pangolin liquidated damages, thank you. Sometimes it's difficult to estimate upfront what the damages from a breach are actually going to be. In which case, you can sometimes, now they need to be reasonable, they can't be excessive, etc., but you can put a figure into the contract as to what damage, what the damages would be from a breach, and basically contract ahead of time that if you breach in this way, you owe us Y dollars. And if you cancel without prior notice, etc., you must pay. I would have to do research to find out how often that gets held as liquidated damages or such, but that feels to me like more liquidated damages than complying with a contractual option. That makes sense? All right. Defendant's arguments in opposition do not compel a different conclusion. And footnote 12 is interesting, pointing out the the prior investment in there, and the argument that the interference consists of acts they had a right to take fares no better. They insist that Mullenweg was under no obligation to provide access, that he had a right to fork. The case is not on point, basically. And yeah, the vulnerability is minor, patched by way before industry standard and the show-off. Because they can demonstrate the likelihood of success, the court goes to irreparable harm. The court does not reach the likelihood of success on the remaining claims, including the attempted extortion claim, which WP Engine identified as its strongest claim during oral argument. That's mild snark. Viewers, the extortion claim is not, in fact, their strongest claim. A plaintiff seeking must demonstrate irreparable harm, must demonstrate immediate threatened injury, traditionally defined as harm for which there is no adequate legal remedy, such as an award of damages. In this context, an injunction, fun fact, is not a legal remedy. It's equity. There used to be, and I'm kind of like trying to figure out how to phrase this, because technically speaking, if I said there used to be like two different legal systems under the common law, it would be incorrect, because the common law was one of those systems, and equity was the system that existed side by side the common law, not as part of the common law, and then they blended. Look, read Bleak House, okay? most of the U.S. except for Delaware and a couple of other states has moved all of the equity and law into single courts and stuff, but a few places still actually have separate courts of law and courts of equity. Injunctive relief is an equitable remedy, not a remedy at law. Remedies at law are mostly damages, sometimes specific performance. So yeah, the real shorthand is if your harm can get totally fixed by the money damages or mostly fixed by the money damages, it is not irreparable, and you just get your legal remedy of money damages. WP Engine argues that irreparable harm is present here because it suffered loss of existing potential customers, damaged customer relationships, market share, goodwill, reputational harm, etc. Elaborates on the losses with numbers. WP Engine fell well short of its forecasted new sales-assisted business in September. Big increase, loss of goodwill and trust, harm to customers and WordPress community, possibility of businesses with a website that stand, the downstream harm being mentioned there. Honestly, the downstream harm was probably the most persuasive to the court, would be my guess. Courts really don't like innocent bystander injury. Defendants counter with 4 unpersuasive arguments. First argument is really threefold. They're not cut off by WordPress, the access through the administrative panel is just a convenience, and the ability to download plugins was never disabled because it has its own stuff. That gets disputed in the reply. They blocked the access to WordPress.org, cutting off its ability to update those plugins in any way, including fixing description and code. Explains hard-coded to download plugins. As a result, the administrative panel can only download plugins from .org. Adds that while WP Engine created a partial mirror in anticipation that defendants would once again block access, the mirror has only focused on making the latest version of plugins and themes available. In addition, the use of the partial mirror forces them to operate a dramatically irregular workflow to provide a limited workaround. That's a lot of words to say, kludge. Footnote 15, we're going to address public interest on the other things. I was wondering when anybody was going to get around to mentioning HiQ. WP Engine remains unable to support and maintain, and its limited workaround is constrained by, wow, that's a big block quote. That's everything they said. Defendants next argue that it can't tie the harm to defendant's conduct. They offer an alternative explanation, the standard caution that surrounds dealing with a company engaged in litigation and negative reviews from July, August, and September. Defendants cite no authority permitting the court to discount the ample evidence of conduct that immediately preceded the negative effects measured by data proffered here. Without any such authority, the court rejects the argument that WP Engine failed to tie the harm. But yeah, that's a big-ass block quote. I love that. And yes, this is just like too long TLDR. Do your homework. Defendants also argue, again without any supporting authority, that the data should be viewed with skepticism. They encourage WP Engine to submit its parallel historical data over at least the past 14 months so an informed evaluation can be made. The court saying, basically, screw you. You can get that in discovery. We're not doing that shit now. Robert, you got the quote wrong. Well, no. You might have gotten that quote right, but the original is the correct statement repeatedly. And is, the law is a ass. That is the correct statement. The law is a ass. Dickens got that one right, man. Very often. Finally, defendants argue that the alleged harm is not irreparable because it's quantifiable and self-inflicted. These arguments also fail. Intangible injuries qualify as irreparable harm. Rent-to-center, yeah. Rent-to-center would have been what I cited too. That's not a... Remember, I said that fairly early on. That's not a thing. But yeah, Kelly, the law is a ass. I believe that's in what you might refer to as the "Have you met my wife, my lord" monologue. I don't remember if that's from Bleak House or not. I don't think it is. It's hard to say. The only times I think about Dickens really... the only time I really think about Dickens is when I'm wandering around the law courts in London. Rejecting the view that recognition of the obvious, while defendants characterize the harm as self-imposed, the role in helping the harm materialize cannot be ignored. In light of the above, the court finds irreparable harm. Balance of the equities, the conduct described at length above, demonstrates significant interest. Defendants again argue that any need is self-imposed, as WP Engine made it a unilateral decision. Defendants add. That would be equivalent to compelling specific performance of a contract that does not exist. These arguments ignore that defendants' recent conduct is what WP Engine seeks to remedy by this motion. It acts to revert to the status quo while the ultimate determination remains pending. The decision resolved a motion that, moreover, the valuable information at issue was not public in the other case. All right, here, WordPress has been until recently available on the same terms as other users, or at least on the terms that were in place up until September 25th. Requiring defendants to restore action on those terms imposes a minimal burden, which is absolutely correct. Public interest addresses non-parties, and the public consequences of withholding relief are significant. Basically, you're screwing all of these people's customers. And you're screwing the community. This is also... Those who have relied on WordPress's stability and continuity of support from for-fee providers should not have to suffer uncertainty, losses, and increased cost of doing business attendant to the parties' dispute. Defendants' arguments to the contrary don't persuade otherwise. They assert that the public is not and will not be subject to any harm in the absence of a preliminary injunction. Not so is becoming increasingly common by courts, in part because it uses fewer letters than the one word equivalent. But have no doubt, not so is a two-word variant of something that is much more commonly expressed as a single word. And that single word has certain bovine implications. In his reply declaration, the temporary solution is impractical. People don't know how to do stuff. Moreover, even if the workaround did not present the difficulties, the costs associated with its implication, as necessitated by Mullenweg's conduct, supports the issuance of injunctive relief. Bovine. Definitely bovine. Large, fresh, masculine. Post-bovine is better, yes. The party claimed that WP Engine has improved its services as a result of recent events. These arguments ignore that defendants recently deprived WP Engine of access it had for years, but does not prevent defendants from otherwise lawfully competing on the terms that were in place before they decided to cheat. WP Engine argues for no bond. Defendants counter that bond of $1.6 million is appropriate because continued maintenance and operation of the website incurs an estimated $800,000 in administrative server and developer costs per year. So in other words, they wanted them to pay the whole cost and that or bond the whole cost, and that allowing access to the developer resources permits a benefit carries a separate value. Bond is necessary to compensate Mullenweg for services he is ordered to continue to provide, and compensate Automatic from revenue is precluded from realizing. That was a lot of chutzpah. Yeah, this is definitely going from bovine to chiropteran. The present services do not qualify as the status quo where one party is indebted. In reply, WP Engine argues that a bond should be de minimis, not the entire budget for 2 years. I think defendants ignore that defendants were, WP Engine's arguments are persuasive. At the hearing, defendants could point to no invoice that remained outstanding as of September 20th, nor quantify the alleged debt with any precision. Under these circumstances, the court finds that any harm is unlikely because it just requires them to go back to business as usual. And we reviewed the order already. So that wraps that. Questions on this before we go on to the very chiropteran, very, very chiropteran exploits, escapades, shenanigans that have been taking place over the last day. I have shamelessly stolen Fledermaus Scheisse from, who did I steal that from? Harry Turtledove. How long would an appeal of the preliminary injunction take? Years. 18 months, maybe. I probably did miss some of today's shenanigans, but let's start with the big one that I saw, and then we can go to there. Am I correct that if this were a case with the same defendant, counsel would be going, we really, really need to talk settlement after PI like that? Not necessarily, because experienced counsel and even inexperienced counsel will recognize that you only get into a case like this in the first place if you don't have a rational actor as client. Your client does not get here with rationality. Are they going to... Oh, I saw that. Nope, that's exactly what we're going to talk about there. Are they going to bother appealing the PI? I wouldn't. I would not. This is a situation... There are some times where you want to appeal the PI because the PI basically resolves the case. Where you want to appeal the PI because, for example, the finding on likelihood of success is so strong that it's really going to resolve absolutely everything, and you got to appeal it. This one, most of the claims, likelihood's still out there. Your motion to dismiss is still out there. And realistically, so theoretically speaking, I think WPEN could appeal to the extent they didn't get everything they wanted to, but they got so much they would look like schmucks if they tried to appeal. And the loser on this one, Matt and Automatic, the chance that this court or the Ninth Circuit stays this injunction pending appeal is somewhere from negligible to zero. So what do you get if you appeal? What you get is 18 months to 2 years where you're stuck with the status quo before you kicked off your nonsense. You're gonna... Appealing would be pretty wasteful. Pretty wasteful. That's my view there. Especially since, facts get deference, facts get deference on appeal. Standards of review on appeal are important. The standard of appeal being what rules kind of the Court of Appeals applies to itself when it's reviewing stuff. There are a lot of different standards of review. For some stuff where it's purely questions of law, the standard of review that's applied is what's called de novo review. The Court of Appeal gives no deference whatsoever to anything the district court came up with and just basically redoes from start. Then after that, you get more deferential, and where you really get the most deference from the Court of Appeals is on things like fact findings and credibility findings. Because the courts of appeal recognize, at least in theory, that the district court was there and looked at the stuff, and they didn't. So generally, questions of law get de novo review. Questions of fact get clear error type of review. And mixed questions, they split the difference and do some from the other. Some with one, some with the other. And then there's abuse of discretion, which is its whole other thing. Anyway. I can't see a single advantage to an appeal here. None whatsoever. If you appeal this in your mat, you are stuck at the start. Salty, wait for me to tell you, because, oh my god. All right. Are there other questions before we go to spoliation? And, y'all, spoliation is the word of the day. Can we say spoliation, children? Fun fact. This is sort of tied, in fact, to... so, yesterday I did a thread, and I'll talk about this one at the end if people want, but I did a thread yesterday on why I don't think that this decision suggests that courts can routinely order open source providers to continue providing stuff. But one of the examples that I use to kind of clarify the concept of, there are general rules and then there are general exceptions is that it is a general rule that you can destroy your own property at any time for any reason, but if you burn your tax records to spoil an IRS audit, you're going to need a white-collar defense lawyer. And when you're involved in a civil lawsuit, you have a duty to preserve relevant documents. You have a duty to preserve relevant documents. So with that on hand, I bring you this. Whoop. So that was dramatic, not. I bring you this. Oh, sorry. There you go. Yeah. Here, Heather's message. All right. There you go. Oh my. Oh my. He just tweeted it out. Presumably somebody who runs or has control over that Discord. Which is the... Juice is a prominent dev and one of the, and... Slack, not Discord, sorry. Yeah. That's the Slack, yes. That is the Slack. Which I know from the square icons. I just use the I got them flipped in my head. Oh. Which of course brings us to, I'm not going to get a chance to go over this, Terrence, if I'll try to warn you, or somebody can warn you, hopefully, on Blue Sky before you watch the whole thing. This is right after, so maybe this is where Matt's learning, there's an open question apparently as to whether WordPress complies with GDPR at all. And I mean, the big thing here is it's just a very open question. Yeah, WordPress.org is privately owned by a person. The email address says Data Protection Officer. This is just to make it easy for Europeans to find and contact privacy volunteers. This is nuts. This is just bonkers. And all of this is in addition to Matt apparently rage quitting the whole community yesterday. So, while I'm going to wrap up because my wife just got home and is apparently on a phone, etc. So, anyway, this is all, okay, I mean, spoliation is never the smart thing to do. It really isn't, because you're gonna get caught. And all right, guys, here's what the cure is for spoliation. Are you ready for the cure for spoliation? The cure for spoliation is what's called an adverse inference. What that means, basically, is that the court, to the extent that there's stuff in the Discord or in the Slack that was going to be important to the case, etc., and it might have been there and it might not have been there, you assume whatever was deleted is bad for the person who deleted it. That's right. That's absolutely right. That's what you do. Make sense? So, I literally can't. Out of all of the things Matt could have done in response to the preliminary injunction motion, this is not only the one that I expected least, this is the one that is the most potentially harmful to the case in the long term. So, you know, there's some really great quotes in that Slack. Yes, we know that because some of them are already in evidence. Were Matt my client, what would my action have been at that point? Canonization. One N. That's what my reaction would have been. That's when you canonize the client. So anyway, are there other questions before I get going? And yeah, request to withdraw is a very viable option. Yep, archive as usual. How likely do I have a guess? Contempt sanctions are almost never ever issued in civil matters. Virtually never. 5% chance. Kapua, come say goodbye to the peoples. Come on. Here's a good girl. Yes, you are. Who's a good girl? Oh, it's a good girl. All right, everybody. How is Whiskey doing? She's recovering. She's feral and skittish, and she's just always going to be feral and skittish. All right, everybody. That's going to do it for me for this stream. Have a great rest of your week and weekend. I'll be back next week with another edition of the Litigation Disaster Tourism Hour. Until then, my name's Mike, still a lawyer. Still not your lawyer, but mahalo for watching, and aloha.